Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is June the 5th, 2025. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Today was overall a good day. I had to take a bit of a detour, but overall things worked out. But we start off the day, pretty normal, for a Thursday, which is a Thursday morning. We get up, and overall I'm feeling fine, but I can tell my stomach might give me a little bit of pause, but I'm not thinking too much of it at this point. So, we get to work. Work isn't too crazy, but I could tell it's a little bit busier for me, but it's not really like stressing me out or anything, so that was good. I'd say where the rubber kind of started meeting the road was it's been raining today. And I guess at some point in the day, like part of the ceiling in the bathroom near where I work, or the restroom where I work, like caved in or something. So I go over to the restroom and I see that there's like caution tape. I see there's like asbestos on the floor. There's like water on the floor. I'm like, what is going on? So I kind of realized like, okay, it's not going to be the best restroom day. Maybe, you know what I mean. You're gonna have to, plan accordingly. So that's when things start getting worse for me. My stomach just starts like kind of like wiling out a little bit more. And I'm like, uh-oh, so we got a problem. I don't really know what I'm gonna do about it, but whatever. So I'm drinking some Sprite. I'm eating my little Belvita, my little digestives, and I'm trying to rally. And I realized like I gotta go home. I need to go home. I need to take 30 minutes or so, collect myself, see how I feel. So that's what I do. I go home, kind of like take a little rest point, relax, do what I need to do, and I'm like, all right, time to get back to plan. So then we go to the gym after that, and overall, I find out too that y'all know how in a previous episode I said, hey, they're going to be doing renovations at one of the Planet Fitnesses, so that means we're going to get an influx of people. Well, one of the employees at the Planet Fitness told me, oh, they're going to be doing this at least two other locations throughout the summer, and they're going to be also working on the parking lot here. And I'm like, dude, that's way too much. That's way too much action. And I already know what that probably means. It means that it's probably going to be more busy throughout the summer than normally would be. So that's fun. I love that for me. But all things considered, it was busier today than I would have expected for a Wednesday. But that being said, we were more or less able to get on all the equipment the way I wanted. Had to wait a little bit, had to kind of take the rounds. Actually, I kind of wound up doing a little bit more exercise, so I guess that was that was plus. So yeah, I mean, through it all, it was a good day. Plus, we got some juicy news that I am excited to kind of get into. Though it does require me to actually talk about the big beautiful bill, but we'll get to it. I'm kind of spoiling the opener here. But let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into some news. I will say a bit of snack corner. I recently got these Snyder, what is it, the Snyder pretzels. And normally when I get the Snyder ones, I get the sourdough pretzel like nuggets. This time I made a mistake and I got like the whole pretzels. And I was initially discouraged because I'm like, that means it's gonna be more work breaking these things apart. Yada yada yada. I'm kind of annoyed. It's gonna be annoying to like break into a hard pretzel, fuck up my teeth. I bust open this bag and I start eating these things. Let me tell you, these are some of the best pretzels I've had. Like I like had to fight the urge, and I succumbed to the urge a little bit, and I took one of them and I put some cheese on it, and I'm like, it hit. It was a vibe. So highly recommend those. And then actually, let's talk a little bit of dub. Let's talk a dub. I forgot to talk about this yesterday, but I finally figured out and went on like a site that I could use well to calculate my body fat percentage, which was something that's kind of been like a bit of a nagging thing in my head because I just wanted to know what it was. I kind of had a rough idea in my head when I initially had the thought of, what my body fat percentage was going to be or what it was. And in my head, I was like, okay, I'm probably like 35% body fat. Like, I think I thought initially, like, when I had the thought, I was like, oh, I'm probably like 37 or so. And maybe I've knocked off a couple of percentage points. So, I would take that. I'm happy with that. But I was doing the math yesterday, and sure enough, and of course I could be getting this wrong. I could be, a bit off. But it read that I was 22.4. And I was like, what? So that definitely was a big dub for me. I was really excited about that, and I was like, let me at least talk about that a little bit on the pod. I feel like I've been kind of all over the place this week. I don't know. I'm blaming it on like a potential thing in the stars. I don't know, man. Things are just weird. Things are off. But I can tell because once again, you can even see it in the politics this week. But anyway, let me get to the startup. I'm teasing. All right. Whew. Our first story comes from The Hill. Live updates. Musk retaliates against Trump, claiming he is in Epstein files, backs impeachment. So big changes in the in the bromance between these two. A fight between President Trump and Elon Musk that broke into the open over the big beautiful bill earlier in the week escalated quickly Thursday afternoon on social media. Trump on his true social platform, said he just went crazy and threatened to cut Musk's government contracts. Musk, on his X platform, claimed Trump is in the infamous Jeffrey Epstein files, then reposted a comment calling for Trump's impeachment. Yes, Musk replied to the influencer's idea. Earlier, Musk accused Trump of ingratitude after the president suggested the billionaire's criticism of the big, beautiful bill was self-interested. Trump, in an Oval Office meeting, told the press Musk seemed to miss being in the White House and was upset about Republicans rolling back Biden-era electric vehicle incentives. Musk responded on X saying Trump would have lost the election without him. Now, that's an important part that Trump mentioned. One of the things that was involved in the Big Beautiful Bill, or is involved in the Big Beautiful Bill, is they want to claw back Biden administration. I'm trying to think what the word are. Incentives, tax saving, blah, blah, blah. And they want to do away with that. So that was a measure that the administration wanted that Musk was like, no, that's bad. That's bad for me. That's bad for others. And, he makes his whole moral play about it. And some people are saying like, oh, no, that actually is Musk. He really doesn't care. Push comes to shove. And I'm like, no, bullshit. This man takes your money. He's not above that. That's for fucking sure. So I do think he did stand to benefit going against this bill, and he still stands to benefit. So, that could be a core reason. But maybe he is just jilted over this shit. I don't know. We're not in his fucking head. It's a mess up in there, I'm sure. But they're mudslinging, they're throwing shade. I think in that Oval Office meeting that was discussed here, it might have been another one, the black eye gets mentioned, or Trump mentions it, where he's just like, yeah, we offered to say, hey, do you want to put makeup on that? He's like, no, I don't. And it's like, why are you bringing that up? That's technically old news and it doesn't really matter. But it's like, at this point, we are throwing shade. It is back and forth, and motherfuckers have had enough of it. And then it's just kind of going back and forth online a lot now. But I wanted to kind of go back and try to sum up a good chunk of this big, beautiful bill, quote unquote. It literally is one big, beautiful bill, OBBB. That's fun. Imagine what if that was a genre? Like you go on the hub. Anyway, no. Let me just kind of do a quick rundown. Also, I want to add, and you can boo me if you want. You can get your tomatoes out from me here. By all means, go for it. I ran this through the old AI. I ran this through DeepSeek. Just because it was easier for this to kind of scum and then give me a fucking layout of this shit. I will try, just like when I do any kind of source, to just make a mention of that. But that way too, I have someone to be like, hey, don't be mad at me, be mad at DeepSeek. Anyway, um, core provisions, tax cuts. Extends 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or the TCJA provisions, reducing individual business rates. No tax on tips or overtime pay. A child tax credit, which increases to $2,500, phasing down to $2,000. SALT deduction cap raised to $40,000 for couples earning less than $500,000. Senior deductions, higher standard deduction, $4,000 for seniors. There's some military stuff. I'm going to just kind of breeze by that. An important note, though, also border security, which is something that a lot of, obviously, the MAGA conservatives in general, Republicans are like, yeah, that's fine. We like that. Obviously, they like the military stuff. But here's one that's a sticky little wicket here. The debt ceiling. They want to raise it by $4 trillion to avoid default, which is something that they've been bitching at fucking the Democrats for spending and raising more of it. So they're like, there are Republicans out there, they're like, why are we raising this? And this is another reason why Elon Musk called the bill an abomination, because he's just like, you hired me, you had me as like the head of Doge to try to like make all these fucking cuts, and now you have all this extra filler bullshit. You're doing all this extra stuff. You're essentially erasing any of the progress that I was gonna make or I was making. So I don't like that. I think this bill is bad. Going off further, offsets, cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, and green energy credits. Repeals EV tax credits, which is another thing we mentioned in the Hill article. Now, the cuts to Medicaid, the cuts to SNAP, those are things, especially with the Medicaid, they're like, oh yeah, we're not gonna cut any like social security spend or social spending or whatever. The government's gonna, we're still gonna do that. That's not the plan. But at the end of the day, you're looking at what you want to cut to try to make this whole thing work, to try to make the deficit work. This is what you wind up having to cut if you're the Republicans right now. And they knew that. They knew that going into it, and they're like, our hands are tied. We're going to have to do this. Or what they say is like, oh, what we'll do is we'll put harder work requirements or just more work requirements in. So that way, like, it's more merit-based. It vets out all the scamming, which is like, you're taking out people who actively need it. You're making it harder for them to get this money. That's all that's really happening, and you're just leaving them to the wayside. Let's see. Imposes work requirements, 80 hours a month for childish adults, stricter eligibility checks, and co-pays, projected to remove 8.6 million people from coverage by 2034. And then in the SNAP part, requires states to cover 5% of benefits, 75% of administration costs, adds work rules. The bill is going to add $2.4 trillion to primary deficits, rising to $5 trillion with interest if temporary provisions are extended. Let's see here. But I mean, overall, this is going to wind up giving a tax break to very rich and wealthy people, very rich, well-off businesses, and poor people are going to suffer. People like you and I are going to suffer. We're going to have to carry and bear the brunt of it. So that's what this big, beautiful bill is in the overall. There's also an added thing that they ham-fisted in, a provision for AI, which is kind of ironic that I used AI to kind of get some of this information. But essentially giving or blocking the states for like enacting any kind of laws, I think for 10 years. So essentially it's like, no, this is only going to be like directed or governed, whatever, regulated by the feds, by the government, like federal government, and states can't have a say. And it's like, why is that in here? This is a budget bill. So, like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? They just shoved it in there because that was part of the thing that Trump wanted to get done. That's part of what this administration wants to accomplish, and they got motherfuckers to please. So it's weird everything that's in this. It's crazy how we're essentially just trying to do a thing that's fucking the common person. And it puts these conservatives in a really hard place because it's like, yeah, you don't like any of the Biden administration shit that they did, but this thing that they've done that you want to claw and take away, and not to mention the Medicaid shit, the SNAP shit, that looks bad for you. You have Republican constituents where they can bitch and moan about welfare queens and da 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 and blah 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 blah. They are a part of the system. They use the system. So it's like, no, we don't want to fuck our base up. We have midterms coming up next year. That would be bad. But for Trump, it doesn't matter. He's just like, you got to trust the process. And what you can't fucking do is betray me. So you have this kind of mix mashup, issue here where now it's like a fucking civil war between all these motherfuckers. And it's like, are we siding with Daddy Trump? Are we going with the buddy in chief, Elon Musk? Like, what are we doing? And where does that leave the bill? Like, we don't know. It's right now currently in the Senate. They're going to decide on whether they're going to kind of say, hey, yes on everything. I would say that doesn't look like that's going to be the case at this point. They probably are going to maybe make minor changes at the very most. That's my speculation here. It's going to get kicked back to the House, then kicked up, and then passed along. So I still think this is going to be bad. I don't know if this is going to make too much waves in terms of the status of the bill. But I don't know. I mean, shit changes every day. I didn't expect this breakup to happen this way. And I also got to say, hey, I like to say I told you so when I got it right. And I'll say I fucked up. I got it wrong. I thought these motherfuckers could keep the grift going, like longer than a couple of months. Like I cannot believe that it got so volatile over this thing. Like overall, I think Elon Musk could really just tank it. Is this an ego thing? I don't know, because this is still hurting his pockets, which is part of the reason why I think he was trying to make the at least gesture that he was stepping away. But now it seems like this is way more than just stepping away. This looks like, no, you're not coming back. They don't want you back. You don't want to be back. So it's a very interesting, messy, sticky little wicket we have going on, and between the White House and I guess the tech sphere, or at least between Trump and Musk. Who's coming out on top? I don't know. My money, weirdly, is on Trump on this, even though I would say, and I hate to do this, I obviously think Musk is right that the bill is bad. Also crazy that he comes out with all these accusations, and it's like, my G, you were fucking platforming this motherfucker on X, the everything app. Like, you bought this fucking piece of shit app. You give it over to him, and now you want to say, oh, well, he's like a pedophile. And it's like, also, wait a second. You're saying he's in the Epstein files. You're over here posed up and dapped up with Ghislaine Maxwell, too. So I don't understand. This does feel like the Kendrick Drake shit, except it is both Drakes. So it's like, oh, that's awkward. I think everyone just kind of like let him fight. Let him just duke it out. But we'll see what happens with these politicians. I think at the end of the day, that's kind of the most important thing, is what's going to happen with this bill. What are they going to change to it? What's going to stick? Because what the Dems can't do anything. They're just here to sit and watch at this point. Also crazy too, because I'm just in the weeds about it. What are the Democrats doing? What are we gonna get out of this? They all they can really do is see, look how bad this Trump administration is. See, look how bad Elon Musk is. Even though we totally didn't mind when he was toting a flamethrower and saying how much he's so cool and we like him. He's like Iron Man. Oh wow. Who is the face of the Dems right now? What is a policy that they can cling to and say, hey, this is how we can make this better than what the big beautiful bill is about to do? They don't have anything. Currently, from what I've heard, there's the rumor mill that they're trying to crank millions of dollars to try to find or make the next liberal Joe Rogan. That's gonna help. I've mentioned this before. They're on this abundance kick where they're yeah, we just gotta buy a bunch of land and do a bunch of dumb weird shit, and that's gonna make everything better. We're gonna build houses and shit. No, that's not enough. That's not doing anything. You're just jerking it a little bit. You got to provide real things for people that they can actually use. I know it's complicated, but I really just feel like we just watch the Democrats just play like Republican light at this point, you know? So that sucks. That's lame as hell. I know. That's not even news. I'm just yapping. Let's go ahead and move on to some other news though. From The Guardian. Crush outside Indian cricket stadium kills 11 and injures 47. At least 11 people have died in a crush outside a cricket game or outside a cricket ground in Bengaluru, where fans were celebrating Royal Challengers Bengaluru's first Indian Premier League, or IPL. Excuse me, I could use an IPA right now. Title win, authorities said. Thousands of people, some waving the home team's red flag, lined streets around M. Shinnaswamy Stadium as the team arrived in a bus in the evening. TV channels showed with some climbing trees and the stadium wall for a better view. The team had given away free passes for the event through its website, but also warned that the numbers would be limited. As the celebration proceeded, some people outside without passes tried to push through gates, and there was further trouble between the perimeter and main area, police said. At least 11 people were killed and 47 were injured in the incident. The Karnataka State Chief Minister Sitaramaya, who uses only one name, that's kind of badass, told reporters. No one expected such a large crowd or such a huge crowd. The stadium has a capacity of only 35,000 people, but 200,000 to 300,000 people came. I kind of think that's cooked to say, because it's like, you know how numbers work here. You know how people are going to turn out. And you also just said, okay, it's limited, so you got to get here, like, you know, ASAP and get your spot, get in. So naturally now there's people who really want to get in and they can't. Like to say we couldn't have seen this coming, I don't know. At a time of celebration, this unfortunate event should not have happened. We are saddened by this. The fans that showed up were beyond our expectations. And I was listening to this initially when I heard it on the BBC. There are people talking like, well, you could have maybe postponed this, had it at a different time, you know, had like better setup involved, brought more security, things of that nature. It's a lot of hindsight stuff. And we've talked about stories like this before where, you know, whether it's a religious thing or it's a sports thing, people are going to come out and, you know, crowds can be very active. And when you have these situations with so many people, especially when you have so many people, like it's such a dense, you know, crowd. You know, disasters like this can just happen. And obviously it's very sad. It's very unfortunate. But I don't know. Yeah. I talk about another story. In January, at least 30 people were killed as tens of thousands of Hindus rushed to bathe in the sacred river during the Maha Kumbh Mela festival, the world's largest religious gathering. I think that's one we covered. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on though. We're gonna do a little weather report. A little talk about the weather. From AccuWeather. Hazy sky to persist as Canadian wildfire smoke and Saharan desert invade U.S. Actually, let me get a sip of water real quick. Collect myself. Excuse me. Apparently the Nintendo Switch 2 has officially dropped. I've been watching a lot of Mario Kart World today. It's, you know, it's Mario Kart. Anyway, the haze is here to stay. Rounds of smoke from hundreds of Canadian wildfires, as well as dust blowing off sub-Saharan Africa, will continue to envelop portions of the United States into the summer, say AccuWeather meteorologists. Recent rounds of smoke blowing across the northern and eastern U.S. over the last week resulted in a hazy sky, poor air quality, and vibrant sunrises and sunsets. While the smoke has mostly retreated back into Canada as of late this week. Additional episodes are expected through the summer, with the first expected early next week. Meanwhile, The Saharan dust will result in similar effects in the south, mostly in Florida and areas surrounding the Gulf and southwestern Atlantic. A recent round of dust blowing off of Africa will also have the effect of putting a temporary lid on potential tropical development. Also, just concerns about air quality and things of that nature. You got hot heat. It's hard to see, hard to breathe. That's no good. And we've covered. I think now at this point, this is our third year covering a Canadian wildfire that's been like so big that it comes into the States. So I mean, hey, that is kind of the state of things. I mean, granted, it's not mentioned in this article. We're not like talking climate change or whatever, but I do think you kind of just have to be prepared for more of those kind of anomalies, right? So I didn't have Saharan dust in America on my bingo card, but hey, hopefully it's on somebody's. Maybe it's on yours, and hey, bingo, there you go. There's no prizes. I don't dole those out, but I don't know. Maybe the big guy or whoever upstairs will, get a little treat for you. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, Canadian wildfires, we know that, but that plus sub-Saharan African desert, like what dust? And it's happening more than it's like throughout the summer. It's not just like a one-time event. I was like, okay, all right, so it goes. Anyway. The next two stories we have are Supreme Court related. That was like initially how I had expected to kind of do this episode, was just kind of talk about a couple of these. That was going to be the main meat. But, sometimes you got to go through a big, beautiful breakup. But anyway, this first one is from CBS News. Supreme Court blocks Mexico's lawsuit against major U.S. gun makers in win for firearms industry. The Supreme Court on Thursday blocked the Mexican government's lawsuit against major U.S. gun manufacturers, delivering a win for the firearms industry in a test of a federal law that shields them from civil suits. The High Court unanimously rejected Mexico's arguments that its effort to hold firearms makers accountable for the violence wreaked by drug cartels armed with their products should proceed because it satisfied an exception to the liability shield provided through the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, or PLCAA. In the case known as Smith & Wesson Brands Incorporated versus Estados Unidos Mexicanos, Mexico had argued that gun manufacturers are knowingly aiding and abetting the unlawful sale of their firearms to straw purchasers who are trafficking them across the southern border to give to drug cartels. But the justices said that because Mexico's complaint does not plausibly allege that the gun makers criminally aided and abetted retail dealers' unlawful sale of weapons to Mexican traffickers, it is barred by the PLCAA. Justice Alina Kagan delivered the opinion for the court, writing that Congress enacted the law to prevent lawsuits like Mexico's. Now, there's more here, but I'm just going to cut it off from here and move on to our last one. But the thing that I dislike the most, because I knew that this was going to play out this way, it was pretty, blatant how the court was going to move here. But the fact that this was, unanimous, that everyone was on board with this, there was no fight from the liberal justices, that bugged me. That bothered me. Because you're essentially just saying, well, it's like, hey, they're just barred from doing it. And I'm not saying that they're wrong here, at least on legal grounds. But the morals of it all, it is very plain and face up. It is not hard to track where these guns are, being bought and sold and then where they're moving to. And it's like to say, well, Smith & Wesson shouldn't be culpable for that. There's nothing wrong with this on America's end. It is just like you're closing your eyes and you're plugging your ears and going la 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 la. That's what it looks and feels like. So to just see all of these motherfuckers just be like, nah, that's cool. We're fine with that. That's the way that the law should be interpreted and is. So that's cool. We can just move on from that. No, boo all of them. Fuck all of them. That is why motherfuckers are like, no, all of these motherfuckers are shit. You know what I mean? It's not just a party line thing. It's not just a super majority or whatever. All of these motherfuckers would sell us out if it just made more sense for them. If it's something that would infringe on their power, all of these motherfuckers are going to be in simpatico. You know what I mean? So Fuck it. Anyway, we have one more story that I wanted to cover. It is also Supreme Court related. It's another update. Technically, it is Ohio related as well. So we love to close out on a personal, local kind of vibe. Not really local, but we're taking all kinds of L's. Love is taking an L between Trump and Musk, and then we got this fucking shit with reverse discrimination. Like, ah, they were gay, so they wouldn't let me do my job. Bitch, you weren't doing your job. Sorry, I shouldn't use those. I shouldn't use that verbiage. Anyway, last break. Oh, excuse me. Gotta collect myself. From USA Today. Supreme Court sides. Oh my. This is karma for me saying the B word. So there we go. Supreme Court sides with straight woman in reverse discrimination case. The Supreme Court agreed on June 5th that a worker faced a higher hurdle to sue her employer as a straight woman than if she had been gay. If only she had just been gay, dude. Then the doors would have opened for her. They always just saying, straight women have to work twice as hard as the gay men. Ugh, oh, gag. Actually, I mean, men do have advantages. That's a whole other fucking episode. Anyway, the unanimous decision, which landed amid a national backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Dude, whatever happened to critical fucking race theory? I think motherfuckers got so tired of having this stupid ass collegiate ass argument that they didn't really want fucking understand, and they wanted to have it with their fucking friends. And then they're like, okay, maybe we can just make it easier. Let's just do 3 fucking letters. DEI. You just say that shit, and everyone knows that you're talking about the woke mind virus, and we can leave it at that. It's just so much easier to explain, I guess. I don't know, man. Bring critical race theory back. Let's go back to school. Let's do it. It could trigger a wave of reverse discrimination lawsuits. The justices rejected. Also, this was another unanimous one, which is fucking wild. To me, it's just wild to me. I don't know. Like Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she delivered it on this one, where she's like, yeah, no, I like, okay, all right, girly pop. The justices rejected a lower court's ruling that Marlene. It's Marlene. What a fun way to spell Marlene. Marlene Ames could not sue the Ohio Department of Youth Services because she failed to provide background circumstances showing the department that the department was unusual employer who discriminates against the majority. That's a test created in 1981 by a federal appeals court used by many, but not most of the federal courts when assessing claims brought under the title, 7? There you go, Roman numerals. 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit said in 1981 that while white people are covered by the Civil Rights Act, it defied common sense to suggest that the promotion of a black employee justifies an inference of prejudice against white coworkers in our present society. But the law itself, which bans discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, doesn't set different thresholds for members of minority and majority groups. The Supreme Court said the background circumstances rule can't be squared with the text of the law or the court's previous ruling. And nothing Ohio has said in its brief or at oral argument persuades us otherwise, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote for the court. That's another one where we're just going to cut off. There's more details there, but, that's how that shook out. Obviously, maybe as you can tell by, how I've worded it, how I've talked about it, I'm not a fan of this. I think this is wrong. I I can understand being upset and feeling slighted here, but hearing the arguments from the Department of Youth Services, they're like, no, her ideas were just bad. They were not good ideas, and we tried to give her opportunities to make changes, but she's like, nah, and then she just springs this on us. It's like, oh, she's mad that she's now feeling like she's being prejudiced, whatever, slighted, as a straight woman, as a white straight woman. She's being slighted, she's being disserviced. I don't know. So to me, that the argument got away from me when she chooses to take that lane, and you were given an opportunities. It seems to be like, hey, no, you can provide something here, but you're just kind of choosing the same bad things that really aren't working. They're not going to promote and make this a better service. So anyway, I mean, that's my 2 cents on it. That's how I'm interpreting this, yada yada yada. But that's going to give us the end of the episode. We've made it. Looks like we made it. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow on TikTok. Follow on Spotify. Follow on Apple Podcasts. Follow whatever platform you prefer. I should be there. And you can catch up with all the old episodes. Hear a new episode when I drop it. All that good. Leave a cool comment. Leave a like. Sharing's caring if you'd like to do that. But if not, that's okay. I really do appreciate you listening, just tuning in. I think that's really cool. So hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.